Okay, so like I said, today's just going to be a weird Zoom day. We're going to be talking about a couple of things. To my knowledge, still no one in the checkout room, but if you do need to check out a camera or something, I'll hook you up. You can either come in during a class time and get one, or you can set an appointment with me and I'll see about getting you one. Same for lighting kits, things like that. We'll get you hooked up. Okay, so today's going to be a bit weird. We're going to be talking about cameras, a little bit about audio, and some lighting. First off, like I said, this is going to be a bit weird. Put this here so I can keep an eye on it up there too on the big screen. This is how I'm going to be showing you guys camera stuff. It's going to be a little fuzzy. This camera doesn't want to seem to focus on anything but my face, and I have to be like one of those YouTubers. It's like, don't look. So just bear with me. And then when it comes to the lighting stuff, I'm not going to turn any physical lights on because they don't seem to react very well to the far off camera. They just kind of blind everything, kind of like what the sun right here does. Hashtag not sponsored. Yes. And then normally I would have you guys pass stuff around. I'd put someone in the seat that I have like right here, and we'd turn lights on and blind people, and we'd be playing around with how they work. We're not going to do that today. I'm going to have myself kind of walk in front of here and talk. I have stuff that I normally pass around that I'm going to have you guys do remotely. That's going to be fun. Those of you in class get to still experience all the fun stuff, minus the blinding lights. So first thing, on D2L, if you want to follow along with my actual notes, let me share my screen real quick. If you want to follow along with the actual notes I'm going to be using today, they are all in the notes section. We're going to be talking about camera. If you were in my Principles of Visual Effects class, these are the exact same notes that I gave you guys for camera setup and how to make sure your camera is working properly. And then I've added this lighting and audio demo here as well. The audio demo, I think in here literally just says talk about audio, if even that. So we'll get to that in a moment. So if you do want to follow along, that's where you can do that. Okay, so first thing you want to do is when you've checked out one of these cameras or even one of your own, there's a couple of things that will make your life a bit easier. There we go. First, check to make sure your battery, every time you open up one of these cameras, make sure you take the battery out of the bottom. It will slowly drain your battery life to leave it in there. It's a very small trickle, but if you do leave it in there for a couple of weeks, it will slowly eat your battery life. That also being said, make sure you charge your batteries. You don't want to go out in the middle of the woods and your battery be dead. That also being said, we do have extra batteries here that if you do check out one of our cameras, you can also check out extra batteries. So if you're like, I'm going to go on an 8-hour hike in the woods, I want to take some pictures. First, watch out for bears. But second, you want to make sure you'll have enough footage so that you can do that. Second, make sure you take your lens cap off. Everyone's done it at least once. You go to shoot some video and everything's dark. Take that little puppy off. Because you want to be able to look through there and see stuff as you're filming it. Now, we do need to set up everything on this camera in order for it to shoot how we, for this class, need to shoot things. So first, I'm going to turn it on. It's going to make some clicking noises. Perfect. Can everybody see that at all? No, not really. Let's see here. You see that? Yeah, there we go. All right. The first thing we want to do is first make sure that brightness is where it needs to be. But when you're working inside of these cameras, there you go. Don't focus on my face. Not sponsored. All right. You do have little camera buttons up here, little recording buttons, play buttons, wrenches, and a star. Now that first wrench has all of your formatting for your camera in here. So it's got things like how to select folders, how to rename things, rotation for when you're turning your camera this way and this way to take pictures and video. And it also has the format card button. Whenever you get a camera, especially if it's from here, go ahead and format the card. If they forgot something on there, you can be nice and leave it, but it's taking up space that you could put stuff on there. You can just hit that format card and wipe all their stuff off. It's too late, they returned it. Make sure that you've got the space for your stuff. Second thing you want to do is under that fourth wrench, it's the one right next to the star. If you ever don't see all the wrenches or all the video footage things, make sure you're in the footage section instead of just on. I know it's a little blurry. It's kind of hard to see. But what that fourth wrench will do, I hit a button, bear with me. Ah, there we go, they're back. So what that fourth wrench will do is you can clear all the settings that someone has put in on these cameras. So for this, I'll go ahead and hit set, and then you have clear all functions, which is the top one, and then clear custom functions. I'm not going to do that on this camera right now just because I did have to turn that LCD brightness down, but this is where you'll come to completely just reset the camera to basic. You want to do this every time in case someone's done something weird to the camera. They've set something up that isn't exactly what it needs to be, or they've set it up for footage for like they wanted to shoot in black and white, but we want to shoot in flat or neutral for this class, or if, for instance, they were taking pictures for another class and they just wanted pictures compared to footage, they might have changed some settings that you might need to change back. So with that, the third wrench, that's where all of your color screen guides are. It's where your touch sensing is able, so you can make it so this is touch screen. Some cameras don't have touch screen, some do. So this is where you can enable and disable that. This other, go back to that one, please. There we go. This third wrench is where all of your visual menus will be. This is where you can turn off that auto power. So currently mine is set to 15 minutes. Everything's backwards for you guys. I'm just going to disable that. I don't want this to ever turn off. It will wear my battery down a little bit faster. But other than that, everything else should appear correctly for you. You can also turn up the brightness. Mine is pretty low so that you guys can see it. But you want to mostly have that all the way up, especially if you're going to be outside filming in the bright sun. And you can also disable this LCD auto off. This is the screen actually itself. And you just want to disable that. What that does is, like, after 30 seconds or so, it'll turn this screen off and you won't actually be able to tell if you're still recording or not. You'll have to touch it, hope you don't turn off a setting, and all of that fun stuff. There are other things in here you can change, like the time zone, the date, what language you're seeing. So if you do speak another language natively, you can change it to a whole bunch of different ones. From there, we have our two play buttons here. So what these will do is allow you to change what's being seen as your histogram. So I like having the histogram on as brightness. That way I can tell if there's a spot that's too bright or not bright enough. I'll be able to change that. And you can also change some other functions in there. Now the two big ones for specifically us in this class is this movie button. It's the second kind of button right there. I am, just so you guys know, going to flip this video horizontally so everything should read correctly on the screen. So what this will do is on this top button right here, this allows you to change what size and scale your footage is being shot at, whether you want 30 frames, 60 frames. We're mostly going to be shooting in the 24 frames per second. But certain things you can definitely increase your frame rate up to 60 or 30. So I'm going to leave mine at that. You can, if you're going to use audio, make sure you change this sound section here to be something different other than auto. For mine, you can see that when I'm talking, my decibels are kind of changing. You might have to change that either up or down, depending on your audio equipment. The other section we need to look at is the other movie button right here. This first menu button, there's one thing in here called AF, FlexiZone Single. That's the one that we want to make sure we have enabled. I think automatically it has tracking. What that tracking does is it keeps the position of your face and make sure that's the part that's not blurry. But for you guys, you want to be able to control everything that's being seen. So you want to have that single, so it's the whole screen is what is being tracked. We also have this movie servo. This is just something that you want to make sure is disabled. It does some weird stuff to your footage for what we're doing in this class. And then you can also, based off of your own personal preference, you can change the grid to either be off, which is the top one, a standard, like the 3x3 rule of thirds, or you can have a grid, which is that rule of thirds. Let me get this. See if you can see. So that rule of thirds also cut into sections. So you can pick any grid you like. For this class, I recommend the grid 1, which is this kind of standard grid looking rule of thirds right here. This will help you make sure that you are keeping everything where it needs to be when you're shooting your footage. If you need to see your histogram, so mine is currently set to brightness, all you have to do is hit that little info button right here, and you can see my histogram right here is really peaked in that white section. The closer I get, you can see that that white is further away. And when I move my hand, that shifts around and you get more of those midtones. What you're trying to do is keep it from being solid black with one high point, as well as just one high point. You want those nice middle values in some form or fashion. Now, so you need to change your aperture. You can hold down this little AF or AV button right here and click this little scrolly right here and it will change your aperture. You can also hold down your shutter button to adjust how quickly and what the actual focus is. Like I said, this right here is all touch screen. So if we want to change our ISO, so currently mine's set decently high, I can click on that and scroll through and change my ISO. And depending on what I choose, when I'm done, my histogram will change. So if I point it in different directions, if I point it toward my face, you can kind of see it's doing something different. You do want to make sure that you are changing your ISO depending on where you're shooting. So if you're inside, it's going to be about 800 or lower, possibly a little higher. And then when you're outside, it's going to be the opposite. You also want to come in here to your quality and make sure that everything up here is set up. So with your white balance, if you're filming inside, you want to be choosing if it's tungsten or fluorescent, because you want to make sure that your color correction is getting a little bit more, it's correcting for that automatically. You don't want to come in with like super blue footage or super orange footage. You want to make sure that you're getting that white balance checked. If you're going to be outside, make sure you're using either shade or sunny, that sort of thing. If you're going to be taking pictures, make sure you change it to the size you need. And then there's other stuff in here that you can kind of play around with to make sure everything is set how you need it to be set. Now the main thing in here that you really want to look at, see if I can find it on the first go, is in here on this second little camera here, you have a style that you need to be filming in. So for this class, normally things are automatically set to things like auto, portrait, landscape, things like that. But we want to shoot in either natural or neutral, not natural, either neutral, or sometimes in here, if you come into the user defined, normally in that user defined 3 is something called cine style. Not all the cameras have that cine style, but it's pretty much the same thing as that neutral. And what that does is it lets you record in flat video, which gives you control of how the colors are interpreted by the footage and not the camera. You want to make sure that you're in control of how your footage is being perceived, not this thing. This thing can't think for you. Also, if you're going to be using a tripod, make sure your stabilizer is turned off. This goes for any type of camera that you might possibly find. If it has a stabilizer function, turn that sucker off if you're going to be using a tripod. If you don't know what it does is it pretty much, regardless of how still it is, it'll constantly be trying to focus it, so you get this kind of wobbly footage. And the stabilization function inside of Premiere doesn't always fix that. So just be aware that's something that you want to keep track of. Any questions at all about camera stuff? I have a less fancy camera that I don't think does all this. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. So long as you can try to film close to neutral, you don't have to have all the fancy buttons and whistles, but you want to try to have that neutral function. That way all the colors are nice and flat so you can control it. If it's something that your camera doesn't have, you might be able to import it into your camera settings, but it's not necessary. It just means that your your color correction might have to be a little bit more hands-on. Let's see here. Lighting. Any other questions about camera stuff at all? Okay, now it is still okay for those of you working remotely and like those of you in here. If you do really need to use your phone, that is still acceptable. But like I said, if you do need a camera or want to get one, I can check one out to you. Either you can come into class time and I can check one out to you, or you can try to schedule a meeting with me. So, lighting. So lighting is a really big part of compositing your shots, making sure everything looks right. If it's too dull or too dark, you'll get that kind of weird glittery kind of look to your footage. I think some of you have already experienced that a little bit. You need to have things nice and bright. If it's too bright, you'll get something that's happening like with me. Everything's too bright. You can't even see my hand right now. I'm doing this. You can't see it. So you want to find that nice balance, something closer to like what's happening right here-ish, where you have nice brightness, not as much dark spots, things like that. So things to keep in mind about light kits. Do use it if it's dark. Don't up your ISO just to get more light. You can still have some weird issues in your footage that you won't realize till post, and you'll have just wasted your time and you may or may not have to go reshoot. So if you can't get a hold of a light kit, just using more light in general will definitely help fix that. With these light kits, or pretty much any light kit, so long as it's not LED, don't touch the light bulbs. The oils in your hands can make those bulbs explode, so just be aware. If for some reason you do check out one of the cameras, or not cameras, light kits from here, just let us know if one of the lights blow. We do keep extra bulbs. You're not going to be in trouble if it like blows on its own. It happens. But just make sure that if it does blow, don't touch it with your fingers. Use a piece of paper or something like that to keep the oils from touching it. That way you or the next person doesn't get hurt. Do check them out if you don't have one or don't think you'll have enough light. If you're going to be shooting inside and outside, you want to make sure both are lit evenly. If you don't want to check one out and want to buy one, LED ones are really cheap. I bought a set of 4 for like 50 bucks on Amazon. And they work really good. They're little tiny ones that I can put in my pocket. And they're pretty decently bright, maybe not as bright as like these big bulbed ones, but all 4 of them would still get you enough light to light up maybe your dorm or your bedroom. I don't recommend leaving them in your car. If they get too hot, they can get damaged. That goes for LED ones too. Plus, you don't want someone to break into your car to steal them if they see them. If it does get too cold, they are known to break or freeze. Same with tripods, they do tend to freeze and break. The little gears inside there don't like it as much. So just try not to leave them outside or in your car. Don't get them wet, that sort of things. Use best judgment for those. Do use things like filters for tone and color. You can buy them everywhere online. I have some that Livingston gave me for this class. So if you do want to use like a bright blue filter over your light, let me know. I can get you one to use for the class. But also, you can also put filters on in post. So if you're like, I really want to get this color, or maybe I want to have a gradient of colors that go across, you can also create those in post and Photoshop as an overlay. You can also put them into Premiere, After Effects, that sort of thing. Don't use paper as filters for these lights. Even the LED ones, after a really long time, will get hot. They probably won't burn paper, but I can tell you these here will burn a paper after like 5 minutes. I tested it. It happens. Don't do it. You don't want to fire. Just trust me on that one. If you are going to use something like paper around them, check to make sure they're hot. You should be able to hover your hand over it about this far and you'll be able to feel the heat. If you can get really close, it might not be too hot and you might be able to touch it. Just be aware, don't burn yourself trying to test stuff. Also, do use different types of light equipment with your lights. So that being said, I have all sorts of fun stuff that I normally pass around to let you guys play with. I'm gonna put this over here so I can make sure I'm showing the camera correctly. There you are, Inception. So normally, I have someone come sit in like this seat that I have right here. I call this seat the hot seat. And then what I do is I show you guys different lighting techniques. So there's the 3-point and the 2-point. So how that works is just because it's easier to see. Right here, someone would sit. And for a 3-point lighting setup, you would have a light in the back and 2 kind of here-ish in the front. This allows for even lighting on the front half while you're getting a backlight that silhouettes your back. There's also 2-point lighting. I'll talk about this a little bit more and I'll kind of draw some diagrams on the computer box. With the 2-point lighting, you have 2 kind of side-by-side, kind of where my monitors are in relation to the chair. But if you're still having issues getting light where you want light in your scene, you can use all sorts of things like these little umbrellas to bounce light around in the room. Think of it kind of like if you're getting a cat to play with a light that's reflecting off of your phone. Same concept, more or less, that you would use with that. And with these big things like this. So this one in particular, we have a couple of different sizes here in the checkout room. So if you do need one of these, we have some. You don't have to buy them. They do get kind of pricey. This one has a couple of different colors. So you guys might not be able to see, but at least the guys here in class can kind of attest to it. This side right here is silver. It will reflect cool tones. The other side of this is a zigzaggy gold and silver. It's kind of hard to see, but what that will do is kind of mix a warm tone light and a cool tone light. But on the inside of here, there's even more. I've got a kind of sphere inside that you can use to kind of refract light, as well as a white to bounce just a standard neutral light. But on the inside, I don't want to open this up all the way. It's a bit hard to get back in there. It's a solid gold, kind of like shiny thing in here, and that will allow you to bounce warmer light. This can also be bent into different shapes to get the light to bounce where you need it. You can also bend it down. Did I do it the first time? Here we go. Into smaller shapes to bounce more specific light where you need it. The same thing that I would use this for. You can use things like aluminum foil, white paper, all sorts of things to kind of get that light to bounce around. Now, let me open up something here. All right, those of you remote, can you guys see my screen okay? Awesome. So I'm just going to show you guys kind of a demo of how the point lighting works. It's a little easier to see than me up here in the front. Okay, so how this kind of works is you have a light. Let's do something that's more light colored. How about yellow, like a bright yellow? I'm a wonderful artist. Looks like a tomato. So this is our backlight. This is absolutely wonderful. I wish this was one of those Cintiqs upstairs. So this is your backlight. And what you use this backlight for is to light behind your subject. This is really hard to do with a mouse. Okay, so you want to backlight your, or rim light your subject. This gives you kind of a halo, just ever so slightly around your actual object or your actor, to give a sense of depth to your footage. Then you have your key light. So I'll have, let's do a slightly different shade, maybe green for a key light. This light is set in front, directly in front of your subject. This is your main light source that you have here. That's why it's called the key. This is the overall color, your overall strength, how bright, your overall tone for your subject, and your overall just main source of light in here. So the backlight is normally a little bit lighter than your key light. And then you'll have a fill light. Now this fill light, I'm gonna make it a blue, can either go here, directly next to your subject, on one side or the other. Sometimes you'll also see them slightly to the side of your key light. The more lights you have, those are all filled. These are normally about half the strength of your key and backlight. They're normally just to illuminate the subject's face, to show more detail in an area, that sort of thing. They're normally softer. Sometimes they use those big reflectors to use as fill lights, or you'll have more of those reflectors around your fill lights to add a little bit more light to different areas. Maybe there's a bit more of a shadow. Let's go to purple here. Maybe you'll have a shadow here and here, and you'll have someone with a reflector right here next to your lights to bounce that light into those darker areas. So like I said, for those, kind of think of those reflectors like you're playing with a cat and it's chasing the light from your phone. If you've ever held your phone up and the sun's reflecting just right and you can kind of blind people with it, same concept, bigger scale. Then, on top of those, you can also use 2-point lighting. It's very similar to that 3-point lighting, just a little bit different. So let's say we have our subject, Lord, I can't spell, subject. So we have our subject here. So we can do something very similar to what we did with our 3-point lighting setup, but with 2 lights. Like I said, it's very similar. So we've got our subject. So my first light here is still my key light. However, my key light and my fill light are set to the same brightness, and they're set side by side, ever so slightly off from our subject, so they overlap a little bit. This way our subject gets fully lit, but we don't have that backlight to illuminate the back. This is another time when you would use those reflectors to kind of bounce stuff around. This is just mainly to standardly light up our subject. It also makes sure that all hard shadows are eliminated from faces, from the body, depending on what you're shooting. It'll just illuminate everything evenly. Now, let's say you place maybe this guy here lower on your subject. Maybe it's shooting somewhere like torso, and you put this guy here a lot higher, maybe it's angled down. That will change the tone of your overall lighting and your film itself. So just kind of keep in mind, just changing the lights a little bit will get a different reaction. If you were to move your lights to be side by side of your subject, so if I put a light here and a light here, you won't get any of that overlap. You'll also get harder shadows in the front and the back of your subject, while the sides will be nice and bright. So just think about how you're changing your light will overall change the tone and feel of your overall footage. Now back to these little bounce light shapes. A couple of other examples that you could use for those. We do have these big reflectors. You can use the reflecting umbrellas. Things that I've seen people use around the house. Someone bought a big one of those little white boards that you can get. They used that. It was cheaper than buying a reflector. I've seen people go and buy a poster board and they spray painted it gold to get that. There's all sorts of cheap methods you can go about to try to make one of these on a budget. I don't want you guys to spend like $50 on one of these things when $4 at the dollar store will get you pretty much the same thing. It just won't be as durable, but it would definitely get like 1 or 2 shoots done. That being said, it's hard to be filming while holding one of these to bounce the light. You might have to be moving it at all times to get the exact kind of light bounce you're looking for. When using things like these reflectors, make sure you're using an assistant. Make sure you have someone helping you, or you're using a tripod so you can just hit the play button, go over, pick it up, and reflect it. Hello? What's going on? Oh, okay. We're doing the lighting demo via Zoom. It's a bit harder.
It's a subject,
and then there's the side lights, the fill, and
things.
Yeah, we got fun ones.
Floating on the subject.
We got fun ones.
I love it.
Yeah. All right. See you. So like I was saying, there are different colors for your reflectors. I mentioned that There is white, there's gold, there's mix of colors. White is normally best used for bouncing off highlighted areas. It adds more exposure to things. It doesn't affect the color. So if you've got a lot of bright colors in your footage that you're trying to preserve, using a white will mostly keep those intact. You won't have to worry about it changing the tone of just that shadow or that highlight that you're putting around. It'll change the light, but it won't change the color. However, silver increases reflection, but it adds kind of a cooler tone. And gold is the opposite. It adds more of a warmer tone, boosts more light from like the cooler spectrums, but it does warm up that reflection. Is there any questions about how lighting works at all? It's a bit weird since I don't have the actual physical lights on here. Did these help? Awesome, no questions, good. Now I did mention audio. So I don't have any of the audio equipment in here to kind of hold up in front of the camera for you. But if you are interested in using any of the audio equipment itself, let me know. I can walk you personally through each individual one. We have boom mics, we have boom poles, long cords, so you can plug it into your camera far away and have someone holding it up a good like 10 foot away. We have wireless mic sets. Depending on how many people you need to mic up, you would need more than one. They're pretty standard. You just make sure that the channels match whatever is on your camera. If you have more than one kit, you just want to make sure all of them are the same number. To my knowledge, only one of the ones that we have currently in there doesn't match up with the others. So that one's for like a one person only kind of thing. Don't be me and turn the boom mic on before you've used it. Yes, make sure you play around with it a little bit. We also have a Tascam in there. Those are really nice. You can hook it up to work with your camera, so you can have top of it here, or you can have it plugged into your camera, just like you can the wireless mics. They plug right in here. That way you don't have to worry about any of your audio not being synced. It'll automatically sync with your camera, but the Tascam works a bit different as well. Sometimes you can just have the Tascam by itself, so you can re-record audio on its own, or you can have it at the same time as you're recording, but you still want to kind of play around with that as well. Now with the Tascam, that is one of those instances where you have to have a clapper. Now that could just be your subject walks up and claps and says, take one. That is for you to match up the audio yourself in post, because it will not automatically sync unless you have it connected to the camera. But like I said, I don't have any of those physically in my hands to show you guys, but if you do have questions about them or you're interested in using them, I can definitely show you those. Any questions about that just in general? I do know Amazon has some really cheap, nice mics that you can use for filming. They've got some wireless ones that are about 30 bucks a pair. Much cheaper than that, you might get some weird noise. You can get a Rode wireless mic that attaches to the top of your camera for I think about 20 bucks, something like that. And there are all sorts of really cool things you can get. Tripod wise, you can get a crane, you can get one of those little hand stabilizers. I do have a shoulder mount rig if you're interested or need one for whatever reason. You can check that out. I think we have that in the checkout room now, but I don't know if Livingston still has it. Don't quote me. I do know we have a crane. Again, I don't know if it's still usable. We do have some steady rigs that you can attach to your chest and run with. Those are always really fun. And we have all sorts of different tripods that you guys can use and check out. We also have a whole bunch of other things. I'm not going to open this up. Currently, our green screen is filled with computers. So unless you're being really specialized just around your body, that green screen is a little bit out of commission. But we do have one of those really big tarp ones that you can use. But we also have this big bad boy. This is a blue and green screen. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. It folds up just like that little reflector that I showed you. That one's just a little bit more complex to get back in its thing by itself, so I'm not going to open that one out. It's a big oval, and it also has different sides you can turn to, kind of like what our little reflector here has. But is there any questions at all so far?
Well, I don't really have a question, but I did see something that could be useful, so I sent you a email to it. Basically, it's a way for you, if you have a laptop or something, you can, you don't want to really mess with like your stand if your camera work. You can actually hook up your camera to like basically the monitor of the laptop.
Yeah, you can definitely, there's programs that'll let you do that too.
Yeah.
We also, I think Livingston has it in his office. It's a tiny little screen. It's about this big that you can also hook up to your camera. I have one for when I use my crane that I'll put my camera up on the crane. I run a big wire down, and then I can control the buttons from this little tiny screen. You can get your camera to work with a monitor in the same way.
Yeah.
Takes a little bit of finagling, but you can do it.
Yeah. Also, it also has a link to basically one of the things is like you have to be careful with the cords. So if you're moving around, it has like a cord that you could get if you wanted it. It would basically allow you to kind of it kind of blocks your with the plug-in, so it doesn't come out.
Yeah. I've seen stuff like that. I think it's really neat. I'll probably post something that you just said on here too, because that's something that's a really nice resource. Let's see here. It's not what I want. I'm going to reshare my screen real quick. So homework. You guys turned in your interview. It was due at the beginning of class. If you haven't gotten it done, get it in, turned in ASAP. We'll watch that the same day we'll watch these shorts that you guys are about to be given as homework. So on D2L, I have this write-up. It's called Exercise 3 Quick Shots. But click on this, should open. What you're doing get my chat here so someone has a question. So what you're going to be doing for homework, it is due, I think I have it on here correctly, as Monday the 14th. Yes, which makes Wednesday and Friday work days. What you'll be doing is you're going to be making 2 15 to 30 second short films. These can be about whatever you want them to be. They can be scary, they can be funny, just little tiny compositions, a couple of shots maybe. You can do it all in one take if you really want to. But I want to see about a 30-second max, 15-second minimum short films. So you just got to make 2 of them. They don't have to be complex. They don't have to be crazy. You don't have to go out of your way and like go skydiving or something. But I want to see a narrative. There needs to be some sort of story there. I'm going to be looking to see how you filmed it. Did you use a tripod or handheld? I'm going to see if you went outside. Please go outside. It's sunny. Just don't go near people. Social distance. But if you do film inside, make sure you're using extra lights. That might mean opening up your windows, maybe bringing in extra lamps from other places in your house, that sort of things. You have yours done. You can put your YouTube link up on D2L, but you can also email it to me. Yes, you can revise as long as it's turned in on time. But yes, so all I'm looking for is that you can use transition, you can use music, you can use sound effects. I just want you guys to tell a story. It can be something simple. It can be something about your pet, doing something adorable. I just want to see that there's a narrative there. And then just like always, at the beginning, Include 2 seconds of black, 5 seconds of a title, 1 second of black, then your clips, and then 1 second of black at the end. Just make sure you're color correcting, make sure you're lighting stuff, stabilize if you need to. Just remember, it's always better to reshoot than stabilize unless you have to stabilize it. I do want you guys to be creative. Have some fun with it. Come up with some cool stuff. Make something that you would want to watch. And yeah, that's it. And you're just going to put them as 2 separate videos with your name on it. So it'd be like last name exercise 3 shorts, 1 and 2. Or you can put them together where they'll have those little spaces of black in between them. And then just like always, you can place it either on the server or on D2L, or last case scenario, you can email it to me. Does anyone have questions at all about the homework? Yeah, so just 2 short films, about 15-ish to 30 seconds each. So you'll have 2 of them. Yeah, so it's a bit confusing, but there is a 2 here. 2 15-second shorts, but you can go up to 30 seconds if you're like, I really need that extra space. Yes, you may definitely come in and get a camera on Wednesday if you need one. If there's not a person in there, I will be in here physically and I will check you out one myself. Same with a light kit, or if you need a mic or one of the reflectors. Any other questions? Yeah, that Catherine, that's fine. There are some like really small, kind of cheap audio equipment things that you could buy. I think you're pretty far out, so you couldn't come in, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. I can send you, or I'll put up on D2L a list of like nice cheap mics if you guys want to own one. We have Tascams, like I said here, but I know I bought mine from Amazon for about like 1/3 of the price of the version that we have here, and it works just as well. It's just smaller. It's like comparing like this remote to like a pencil. Like mine's like super duper tiny, and the one in here is like really massive. And I think I only paid like 20 bucks for it, and it works really great. I'll see about putting a link to that and other types of mics for those of you that aren't able to kind of physically come in. I'll put a list of that. So if you go to the table of contents here, in the next day or so, I'll put it under important here. So just kind of keep an eye on that. We're not limited to 1 shot. No, you can do as many little shots in there as you need to. Just so long as you're in the 15 to 30 second time range. You can do 1 shot, 2 shots, 8 shots, 20 tiny 1-second shots. Splits are fine. Transitions are fine. Music's fine. This is now all in your hands. You can use everything that we've learned so far on this. Yeah, this is all you. Yes, you can also do stop motion. If that's something you're interested in, you can definitely do a stop motion for this one. Is there any other questions at all? Concerns about this little exercise? Okay, so that's all I have. There's about an hour-ish of class time. Awesome, thank you. I'll make sure that also gets on there, Thomas. I'll put that in the important link stuff. If you've got questions, stick around. If not, that's all I have. Yes, it is due on the 14th. So that is next Monday. So this Wednesday and Friday are work days so that you guys can film. I am going to start only being Zooming from home on Fridays to kind of reduce presence here on campus a little bit more. So if you do need me, I will pretty much be on Zoom all day Friday from like 10 to 5. If I'm not on there for whatever reason, you can send me an email and I'll pop on. Yes, Tyler, I saw that. Thank you. So yeah, that's all I have. Y'all can pop off if you like. You can go on home. Those of you physically in here, those of you at home, you can go eat some snacks, cuddle something, watch a movie, go outside, shoot some video. That's all I got.